All right, let's get right into it. When we think about what crosses the border, we usually think of people, cars, maybe maple syrup, but what about garbage? Today, we're unpacking one of the strangest trade situations in North America, the Great Garbage Migration from Ontario, Canada, straight into Michigan.
Everything starts with this one absolutely staggering number, 3.46 million tons. Now, that's not steel, it's not lumber, it's not anything you'd expect. It's something else entirely.
So what is that number? Well, that's the weight of garbage, mostly from the Toronto area, that gets loaded onto trucks, driven across an international border, and buried in American soil. And get this, that's in just a single year.
And this is where it gets really wild. That Canadian trash makes up almost 15% of all the waste buried in Michigan. Let that sink in. Nearly 1 out of every 7 truckloads of trash being dumped in Michigan isn't even from Michigan. It's not even from the U.S.
So you gotta ask, right? How on earth does this happen? How does one country become another's dumping ground? Well, the answer isn't simple. It's this tangled web of economics, weird legal loopholes, and straight-up politics.
So let's start with the most obvious reason: money. It really all boils down to some pretty simple and powerful economic incentives.
Just take a look at these numbers. In Michigan, the state tipping fee, that's basically the tax you pay to dump a ton of trash, is a measly 36 cents. 36 cents. Now, look next door. Ohio is almost $5. Wisconsin is over $6. That incredibly low price has basically put up a giant neon sign on the border that says, "Welcome, garbage."
So the obvious fix is to just raise the fee, right? Well, yeah. Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer tried to do exactly that. She proposed jacking it up to $5 a ton. The idea was to make Michigan way less appealing for out-of-state trash and, raise about $80 million for environmental cleanup. But it completely failed. And here's the kicker. A federal law says you can't charge out-of-state waste more than in-state waste. So to charge Canadian trucks more, Michigan would have had to charge its own citizens and businesses more too. It got branded a trash tax on Michiganders, and politically it was dead on arrival. Okay, so if the local economics created this mess, what really locks the whole system in place? Well, for that, we have to look at international law, specifically the big trade deal between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada.
Believe it or not, under this trade agreement, garbage gets a special, really powerful legal status. It's called a wholly obtained good. It's a fancy term, but it basically means used stuff collected in one country that's only good for recycling or, being trash. It's a perfect description for a truckload of garbage.
Now, this is the really crazy part. This legal definition has a huge consequence. It means that even if a truck is filled with old toys and electronics made in China, the second those things are thrown into a garbage bag in Ontario, the entire load is legally considered a Canadian product. And that shields it from all sorts of tariffs.
So for decades, you've had this, let's call it a delicate arrangement. Ontario gets a cheap way to get rid of its trash, and Michigan landfills get paid. But now, the whole system is facing some serious geopolitical heat that could shut it all down.
The first big threat is a number that should make any business nervous: 35%.
That's a potential tariff that could get slapped onto these trash shipments under something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. If garbage were to somehow lose that special protected status we just talked about, bam, a 35% tax would just be catastrophic for the companies that haul this stuff.
But if you think 35% is bad, hold on. There's another, even bigger threat lurking out there: a 40% penalty.
This one is called the transshipment penalty. It's designed to stop companies from, say, shipping goods from China through Canada to try and dodge U.S. tariffs. And since Ontario's garbage is packed with foreign-made stuff, haulers are terrified of getting hit with this by mistake. I mean, how do you prove the origin of every single crushed can and broken doodad in a compacted garbage truck? The answer is, you can't. The risk is just massive.
So you're probably wondering, with all these huge financial risks piling up, why would Ontario keep sending its trash south? The answer is pretty simple, and honestly, it's a little desperate. They don't have a choice. The province is literally running out of space. This timeline really lays it all out. Right now, Ontario depends on the U.S. as a release valve. If things keep going as they are, all their landfills will be full by 2037. But if the U.S. border were to suddenly close to their garbage, that date jumps forward to 2034. That 3-year gap, that is everything. It is a ticking time bomb for the entire province.
And it's not just an abstract problem.
As waste policy advisor Peter Hargreaves says, we're generating more waste than we can manage. We're reaching a point where decisions need to be made in our own backyard. The party's over, and now Ontario has to figure out what to do with its own mess.
And when you peel back all these layers of economics and law, you're left with a much bigger, much tougher question. In a world where we buy things made all over the globe, who's actually responsible when we throw them away? Is it you, the consumer? Is it the company that made it thousands of miles away? Or is it just the country that happens to have the cheapest hole in the ground? It's something to think about the next time you drag your bins to the curb.